What's up, everybody? Welcome to Dad and Daughter TCG. I'm sitting with Anthony. Anthony is our Kano player. He took 7th in our Road to Nationals event. So I wanted to kind of do a breakdown. We had several people in the chat kind of want to see the deck list. So I'll go through it and I'll actually end up putting it together on a FabDB list and you'll see it in the description. But yeah, kind of walk us through like what is your game plan when you're seeing what's the play you're making, what's the most important cards that you put in that made this deck run for you?
I mean, I guess the whole point is burn your opponent.
For sure.
I don't know. The biggest thing is I played a lot of mono red and I played a lot of like OTK decks in Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff. So I wanted to play something that is almost I'm playing by myself and you don't really care too much like what your opponent's doing. The only thing you're really doing is math, which apparently I'm not that great at math anymore as I get older and smarter and dumber. But there was a lot of interesting plays that you can do with this deck. And Kanoing and hitting these Tomb of Aetherwinds or even hitting a Tomb of Fendal is like super overpowering. Especially Kanoing the Aetherwinds and plussing off that is just nuts. Like there was times where I lessened in lava just to put an Aetherwind on top just so I can dig a little further and hope I can get 2 blues so I can play another card that was in my hand or snap my Striders and then play my Arsenal card to get that last little bit of damage. My biggest swing I think was 26 today.
Sick.
With I think it was 10 cards in the pitch or 9. It was 10 or 9, but I dug through. I had 2 Tomb of Aetherwinds and a Fendal all out. So I drew I think 6 cards that turn. But I mean, there's so many different plays that you can play with this deck, and I wanted to play like what I think is, I would say after watching Shane, the second hardest deck to play.
Yeah.
Shane.
I would very much so agree with that. This is like the very much so either the first or second hardest deck to pilot because you really got to understand sequencing. You coming from Yu-Gi-Oh is super helpful for you because you know how it's going to resolve backwards in your benefit.
Yeah. Pretty much everything worked good. This was a last minute ad from last night. It actually turned out really good and it actually almost lost me one of the games because I played it for its instant value and not its pitch value. And I did my math wrong, but luckily I think I K-no'd off the top of both and I still had it. So I was like, okay, cool. Like that's fine. The 2 losses that I had were both based off of 1 damage. Not being able to get that last damage in. And I think that could have been resolved if I pushed a little bit earlier. But games went a lot longer than I thought they would compared to Blitz.
Trying without a doubt the list deck in the tournament.
Awesome.
Thanks. I also played this because everybody said that Kano can't do well in constructed. So once starting below and hating it, or once there's people hating on something, that's what I want to do is play one of the best things possible. I did a generic only 5 cards for my equipment. I believe and truly believe this is the only 5 that you'll play. Period, end of story. I don't think there's room unless you're playing in like a mirror match. I could see like Skullcap being useful, but for the people that played Skullcap today, I played around it.
None of them got value off of it.
No,
right?
Absolutely not. It just sat there and I just laughed.
You do a good job at keeping yourself low enough that they can't get past you. And they can't use it.
And it's just useless. It just sits there and I just laugh. I'm like, enjoy. I had the really expensive cards in there, not doing anything. But this is obviously one of the best cards in the deck.
Now, dude, talk about your sideboard because that's one I want. This is the weirdest. This is a really funny and odd Kano sideboard, and he teched this up on his own, and I think it's really smart.
Okay,
so
let's see. I guess I can just move all this stuff out of the way. But I mean, I also only played 2 of these because this gets cloggy in your hands.
You get stuck with a 3rd one in your hand and it's bad.
Terrible. I also played 1 chain because I wanted to tutor it off of the Lessons in Lava.
Yeah.
So It's a really, really good card. But one, I'm just still really having a hard time. I cut Spindle down to 2, and that maybe was a mistake, but it worked really, really well. I think the red and blue counts were doing really, really well. I didn't have bad turns where I was stuck on a lot of reds. For the one turn that I did, I had the time snap for it, so I was like, okay. But consistency-wise, I think I tuned it pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually still like Whisper of Oracles in it. It did get sided out a lot. I guess I sided it out against Prism twice.
Okay.
Because I put in the unmovables and some other stuff, but we'll go over that right now.
I like that we pulled 3 chain lightnings between all of us last night too.
Yeah.
I hit a foil one.
Okay, so if I wanted to get more aggressive, I thought 3 reverberates were really good in the side. Especially if they had low null rune. Like I was just thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? If I feel like they're gonna have low null rune, I'm gonna add in the reverberates and have a good time with it. I sided 1 extra chain lightning that actually never got sided out of here. So this is probably gonna change into something that is a little more useful for me, but it's really, really hard to change the main deck without messing up the consistency. And I did run into a game of No Rune 4.
Oh, no.
And that was funny because I sided in 3 Nourishing, 2 Enlightened Strike, and 2 Pursuit to Knowledge. My whole theory behind this was watching the Runebig games play, and they do the rune chance and the physical damage. And I'm like, if they're already going to be blocking some of my stuff, then why don't I just bait out their stuff with the physical attacks and then play Arcane to follow up with. And a lot of times the Arcane will go through. And one of the big things were doing a Light and Strike and then playing like an Aether Spindle and getting like, you know, a knock 3 out of it. Or maybe even they didn't have any more resources because they blocked 2 cards with that. There was times where I pushed the Enlightened Strikes to 7. There was times where I drew the cards off them. And honestly, if I were to ever main deck an attack card in it, it would be 3 Enlightened Strikes inside Kano. These actually turned out to be really, really cool and really, really cheap free damage. And it caught them all by surprise.
Oh yeah, I bet nobody was expecting to see that.
No, not at all. But against the Prism matchup, this is literally the sideboard I put in for it.
Yeah, gotta have immovables.
Now, everybody's going to be like, oh, you can't get Phantasm off these. That's not what they're there for. If you're playing it for that, obviously you're not playing it right. Because that's not what they're there for. You're there for the draw, and you're there for the go again factor. Obviously, these are for the Phantasm. This is so you don't get curb stomped.
Yeah.
And then this is so you can keep reusing your Nourishing, or you can put back your power cards, because a lot of times you're going to be blocking a lot against Prism, and so you're going to be burning good cards that you're going to need later on, but you really you have no options to do it. Well, this gives you the option to put them back in. I don't believe that you should ever run more than these, because
one is more than enough.
You shred through your deck. Like, oh my gosh. I could probably say I had to have had like a 20 plus turn of just going through cards.
Oh, yeah.
And I just dug through like a chunk of my deck. And I saw everything I needed. He had no way to get out of it. That was the turn that I did do the 26 damage, but man, like, and it was on his turn too, which was even like more righteous.
Yeah.
And he overextended. He played his last card, and I was just like, "So you have no cards in hand?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he had an Arcane Barrier for 3, and I just blew him out of the water.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, that's some sweet tech for the sideboard. It makes a lot of sense. Hopefully, we see some people go up in 7th place, earn them a Cold Foil Levia. So there we go. All right.
Maybe this will be the next chick I play and try to crack it. Yeah. I don't know. Or maybe just put it up for sale.
Well, dude, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us about your deck.
Yep. Appreciate it.